Good morning, everybody. Nice to have you with us. High heat begins on this 24th day of July. It's a Monday, and it's nice to have you with us talking about what's going on in World of Baseball today. Jason Roy's in the house. Steve is the CP. Andrew Adams in the house, as well as the director. Alana, momentarily, you and I now, as we talk about what's going on as far as the World of Baseball is concerned. A week before the deadline, about 62% through our regular season as we journey our way and slug our way through the month of August, September, and then postseason baseball in October. Let's kick it off here with the American League East on this early edition on the Monday program. Great job by the Orioles. Tampa's a mess right now. They're terrible in the month of July. Combination of factors, injuries with the rotation. Bullpen's been a little spotty. They're not scoring enough runs, having a lot of trouble. Baltimore walked in there, won 3 out of 4. They did an excellent job in doing so. Batista was wonderful in the save department, and the Orioles right now, who were 6.5 back at the beginning of the month, now find themselves in first place. And they're 3 or 4 games ahead in the loss column as far as the AL East is concerned, and their tough part of their schedule, has relented a little bit. Remember, they don't have to go to Tampa the rest of the year, and they play the Yankees this weekend, and they are done then with the Yankees for the rest of the year too. So Baltimore are going to be tricky to catch as far as the last 2 months go. See what Elias does running the ball club. They don't have enough pitching, I don't think, to win it all or to really be a major postseason factor. Does it go out there and do some things? A lot of folks think bullpen more than rotation. May not be a great starter out there anyway, but a wonderful job for Baltimore, and maybe Tampa has to do and find a little spark plug because they've been very spotty. The rest of the American League is interesting. East is interesting too. Toronto kind of does what they do. They're 9-10 games over. They lost 2 out of 3 in Seattle. They won the game yesterday. They were fortunate. They got out of the bottom of the 9th inning, and they're going to L.A. for the weekend. Toronto's on pace to win about 85, 86 games. I think the Red Sox would like to sell if they could, but they can't. When you're only 2 games back of the wild card, and the Yankees are right with you, and the Yankees aren't going to sell, the Red Sox can't either. That's a disaster for their front office. They're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. See what the Red Sox do as far as the next week is concerned. They buried the Mets 2 out of 3. I can't read the Yankees. Kansas City shouldn't be in big league baseball. They've been awful. They're almost as bad as the A's. And the A's at least have a few moments. I mean, they won a series against Atlanta. They won a series against Boston. Kansas City, outside of beating the Dodgers, have done nothing all year. Yankees swept them over the weekend in the Bronx. Again, I can't read too much into it because of the opponent. The American League East right now, though, Baltimore, they're chasing. Keep an eye on that. The White Sox, they're finished. We understand that. Obviously, another bad weekend in Minnesota. They're on load. We'll see what they do. We understand that. The Mets are interesting, too. Had a bad weekend in Fenway. Scherzer, as is wont, giving up 22 home runs in a year. An awful performance on Saturday late in the second game of the doubleheader. Mets maybe a little momentum, and he gives it up with 1,000,000 home runs. He's been awful. Got a 4.20 ERA. Got booed off the mound last year in the playoffs badly. We'll see what the Mets do. I don't think the Mets want to throw up the white flag because in that market, in that city, in that ballpark, that is almost you're welcoming nobody there in the months of August and September. So I don't think the Mets would trade Scherzer. But if you're asking me if Texas would want him and you want to give up all the money and pick up that option and he waives his no trade and you can get a couple of prospects, I do it. I really would. I wouldn't trade Verlander so much. I keep one of them. I get rid of the second one. I don't think the Mets are going to do it, though. Again, I don't think Cohen is going to wave up the white flag. You want Mark Canha, you can have him. You want Tommy Pham, you can have him. You want David Robertson, you can have him. Mets are going nowhere, but they'll probably keep their 2 big pitchers, and we see where we are here down the road. The Cubs are very interesting right now. They had a very good weekend against St. Louis, and by the way, they should thank Lon Culpa. His job behind the plate on Friday afternoon was hideous. He killed the Cardinals in the 8th inning with the bases loaded. The Cardinals were all upset. Player got thrown out. He called 2 strikes in big situations. I'm not sure if these are the pitches. They're probably not. We're showing you Sunday highlights instead of Friday highlights. That's my fault because I didn't warn him. But his job behind the plate was terrible. And that set the weekend up for the Cubbies, who won the 3 games. What the Cubbies do right now will be very interesting. Bellinger has been super. He's had a great stretch. He's not signed for next year. year. He'd be a perfect fit with the Yankees, but they're not really in the race, but he'd be a perfect fit, the divisional race. Perfect fit for the Yankees. Cubs are 5.5 back. They got a lot of games at Cincinnati. Milwaukee had a bad weekend. Cubs have played better as of late. Had a pretty good homestand, beat the Yankees 2 out of 3. Prior to that, the All-Star break. What the Cubs do here at 3 under 500 will be fascinating. Do they unload? Do they give up? Do they say, you know what, we have no chance this year. We're not winning the division. Being 5-6 games back of the Brewers, only one series left with them. I'm not sure. And maybe they trade Bellinger, get a bug full of players. Then they're going to get people giving them a hard time. It's a big market team. And, they're worried about trading Bellinger for a couple of prospects. Really, this is what the Cubs are doing. And they played a little better. So we'll see what the Cubs do this week. Jesse Rogers will help with Alana there. Will be interesting. And then finally, the Dodgers. They're by far the best team in the NL West. They had a good weekend against Texas. They came back on Friday night in the 7th inning off that rookie pitcher with a lot of walks. They had a bad game yesterday, but they had a very good road trip. They played very well. Their pitching situation is still a little dicey, but the Dodgers are hitting a lot of home runs. They got a big offense. They played very well. Will Smith and Freeman and Betts. J.D. Martinez, Taylor and Muncy will contribute. They got a good offense, and the Dodgers are going to win that division going away. Arizona's a mess right now. They got swept. A horrendous road trip where they got buried in Toronto, buried in Cincinnati. 1-2 out of 3 in Atlanta, but not good enough. 2-7. The Giants played well, then they turned around and lost 5 in a row. 3 in a row to Washington. First series that Washington has swept 3 games in basically 2 years. Washington had not swept a 3-game series in basically 2 seasons, and they did it over the weekend against the Giants. Giants in Arizona, though, are in the mix. We shall see what they do. I would try to think they would add and bring some people in. And, of course, San Diego, every time you get revved up with them, they lose a bad game. Lost on the last game to Toronto. Lost yesterday to Detroit in the early morning Peacock game. We'll see what the Padres do. Stu 4 back. They're like the Mets. I don't think the Padres want to admit defeat. And although it might be best for the organization to sort of throw up the white flag, I don't think San Diego or New York wants to do that. And so as a result, I think that they will stay pat. They won't add, but they'll stay pat. I think the teams that will definitely say goodnight to their season, we know the Cardinals will say goodnight. We know the White Sox will say adios. They're done in 2023. They're on load. Anybody you want. The Mets will sort of at the fringes. Won't be Scherzer at the fringes. And the Red Sox now are going to have to go out there and they're going to have to try to make an attempt to be competitive. They need some pitching. We'll see if the Red Sox do that. They're only a couple games back of the wild card, and the Yankees are with them. So if the Red Sox sell and the Yankees don't, the fan base up there will not stand for that. So the Red Sox are going to have to do what the Yankees are going to do, and the Yankees will never sell. So we'll keep an eye on where we stand these next 7 days here. The weekend, what I took out of the weekend more than anything else, the Dodgers are the best team by far in the NL West, the second best team in the National League. That's the first thing I took out of the weekend. The Mets are done. We knew that. They're finished for the year. And what the Mets do will be very, very interesting here in the next 6-7 days. They play the Yankees 2 games in New York this weekend at the stadium, and they will lose a game there. They're not winning both. So that's going to further hinder them. Only 5 games left before next Monday. We'll see what Epler and Steve Cohen come up with.